Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Indie Creative Comics Podcast, where we are all about independent comics. I'm one of your hosts, Angel, with John Pepe.
How's it going, Angel?
Dude, I was about to say Phil.
Every now and then there's that little pause. It's
Well,
like
it's funny because I was talking to my wife the other day, and whenever I talk about you, I always say Phil. That's the only
right,
way she knows you. So if I say
right.
John, she's like, "Who?"
Who?
So we were talking about you the other day, and I was like, but I had the biggest brain fart because I was like, well, yeah, I was talking to, and I couldn't remember for the life of me what we used to call you for like 5 minutes driving down. I was like, oh my God. And then it just came back to me. I was like, what the hell's what was Phil's father's name? What was his name? God damn. And then it just popped into my head. So, yes. All right. Not even freaking 2 minutes into the freaking, not even 60 seconds, and we're already off onto a tangent. It's crazy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Indie Creative Comic Podcast. I said my name is Angel. John. Yeah, we're here. We're back. It's another week, and we have comics to talk about. But yeah, just a little bit about us, though. John, a resident historian, knows everything about everything. It's fucking annoying as hell, but
If I don't, I just pretend to.
yes, and really convincingly too, because it just gets
Sometimes
by
it's
me
all
most
it
of the
takes.
time.
Just a little, even if you're wrong, just a little conviction goes a long way.
That's it. And yeah, and I'm one half of actually indie creative comics, small publishing with oh my god, I already forgot his name.
Justin.
There you go, Justin Bart. It's Monday. That's what it is. We're going through Monday blues. Yeah, just a really small publishing company. Just really, we love this medium. We decided to. I met him. It's going on what? Maybe a little over 5 years now, where we kind of gotten together and decided to, just do our own thing. So, yeah, it's been a journey, which is fantastic. But being involved, I think. When did you get into comics? Honestly.
I mean, as a kid,
Yeah.
just ever since I was a kid, I think there was always the awareness of the big two, especially the Batman syndicated 60 show running in syndication, the George Reeves Superman show. So definitely knew about those. Super Friends cartoon, healthy Saturday morning diet. I think I remember two comics as being probably my first comics that I have a memory of. One is the Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
That's
1978.
Yeah.
My dad was a sports writer. He traveled a lot. He knew Ali, and I just remember one time and I was 3 years old, 3.5 years old.
You just say that nonchalantly, like
he knew Ali. And I, so because of that, I also had an aware. I mean, Ali was an icon, right? So even at like 3 years old, I knew who Muhammad Ali was. And my dad came home from a trip with the biggest just comic book I'd ever seen, and it was this oversized Treasury edition, Superman versus Muhammad Ali. So still one of my favorites to this day. Neil Adams just does a great fucking job on that comic. And if you can't get the original, it's been reprinted a few times, most recently in a facsimile edition. So it's just as a comic book and a time capsule, it's such a treat.
And it was a Treasury, wasn't it?
Big comic. Yeah. The other one that it's also around that time was the Superman movie. So, there was definitely that awareness of that character, multiple levels. But the other one that really does stand out to me was a What If from, I think, 1980. And I remember we got it off a spinner rack, at Phillips Stationers in Montvale, which I don't think exists anymore. Montvale, the town, still exists, but Phillips Stationers now. And it was a What If Captain America had become president. And I just remember the cover of Captain America with the mask pulled back, being sworn in as president. There's like Jimmy Carter was in the background. Like it was just, so that comic also stuck out as well. I had recently reread that a couple of years ago. And I will say of those two comics, the Superman Muhammad Ali is still the greatest comic of all time. It is fantastic. The other one is a neat little, again, a little time capsule piece. It's very interesting. The Cap running for president and winning thing. It was a good What If story, but it's really that Superman Ali one is just so iconic. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah, we talk about it all the time. That's going to be a classic forever. And I mean, I read, I vaguely remember. 'Cause I never bought comics myself. I just couldn't afford them. But my friends, whatever they had lying around. So I think a couple of X-Men here and there, and but nothing that I can, any stories that I can actually remember. It wasn't really big in my life until I was like in high school, which is crazy. And it was around a time where Image was formed. So I had known about like McFarlane's Spider-Man. I had known about Liefeld's, New Mutants and stuff like that. Those are artists that I found. I think the big one was Jim Lee's X-Men run with Chris Claremont writing that. And it's so funny because every now and then I hear a story that pops up because Chris Claremont did not want to write another Magneto story, and Jim Lee was adamant, and it was all about the artist at that time, really.
Yep.
So when Image came into the picture, just being as big as it was, that's when I went gung ho. I mean, I started working around that age, so obviously Youngblood being the flagship, later Spawn. Stuff coming was great. And then I got pretty much almost everything, even freaking Troll when that came out, which was just this little fucking dude. Do you remember Troll?
I do remember Troll. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And they were like bouncing all over the place from one comic to another.
Yeah. I mean, it's so for me, again, those comics sort of opened the floodgates, and comics kind of became a regular thing because it was reading, right? So that was a big part of it, and
right.
And so by the time I was 1985, 10 years old, I'm on a healthy diet, steady comic reading. So a lot of these guys like Eric Larson, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, like I was picking up their first mainstream work, when they were breaking in at DC and Marvel. And so I had the awareness of these guys. So then you go to 91 when they break away and form Image, and it was a really big deal. But I just didn't quite gravitate towards the Image stuff when it was coming out. Partly budgetary, and do I have to add this whole new line of books on there? And so, but I definitely had that awareness, and I knew about these guys, and it was really exciting at that time to have this new comic company come up. I equate it to like when we were kids around that, like the mid 80s, when the Fox network started, because at that point you had CBS, ABC, NBC, the three big networks. And it's like, who's this fourth network coming out of nowhere? They're going to fail. And it was really the same attitude with Image. They just, a lot of the guys from the big two were like, this is going to be a flash in the pan. It's not going to last.
Yeah.
And yet here we are,
30 plus years later.
Image is not just, the superhero game. It is expanded. It is one of the more diverse publishers out there, still creator owned. And it's really funny. I was thinking about this when we were talking a little bit about this last week in anticipation for the book you're going to talk about. One of the things that was really funny, specifically, if you look at like what the Image creators brought to the table when they started Image, because it was very like, so, Todd McFarlane famously has said that Spawn was a character that existed in his head since he was in high school.
Correct.
And his big breakthrough title with Marvel was Spider-Man, even though he'd also done Hulk. But, that Spider-Man really put Todd on the map. And so he goes over to Image, and his big launch is Spawn. And it has all of those hallmarks of his style that he brought to Spider-Man grafted onto this character that he had in his head since he was a kid. And you look at Jim Lee goes over and he does Wildcats, right? And Wildcats is very reflective of what he was doing on X-Men, right? And it's a team book, all these different characters with interestingly enough, little bits of element of Fantastic Four thrown in, because Jim Lee's a big Fantastic Four fan, right? And Rob goes from New Mutants to a new title created for him, essentially, to doing Youngblood. And Youngblood is very reflective of New Mutants with some Avengers elements thrown in. And I find that really interesting because, again, you know, all these guys that were leaving Marvel, and Marvel's like, you guys aren't going to do well. You know, good luck. We'll wait for you to come back. And then Image takes off. It's huge. And Marvel starts struggling for various reasons in the early mid 90s. A lot of bad financial decisions, selling off IPs, all that stuff.
Right.
And so Marvel was having such a tough time that they reached out to Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld over at Image and said, look, we want to end 4 titles. We want to end our Avengers line, and we want to shop them out, rent them out to you guys for a year. And so Jim Lee gets purview over a new Iron Man title and a new Fantastic Four, and Rob gets Captain America and Avengers. So it's kind of interesting that those Avengers FF elements now kind of circle back around. It's something that only really, I think, happens, you know, on the frequency like it is with comics, where everything is very cyclical like that.
Right.
So I found that very fascinating when that happened, and even that experiment, that year of comics that Image was putting out for Marvel was a new universe with new origins and retelling old stories. And that was really a precursor to eventually 5 years later in the early 2000s, what became the first iteration of the Ultimate Comics line. And so I find, again, more cyclical, repeated behavior in this medium, which again, you know, that was gangbusters in the early 2000s until it wasn't. And here we are now 20 years later, there's a new Ultimate line. And now DC has followed suit, because DC, again, has always tried to copy what other things were successful. And on this final attempt now, or this more recent attempt, DC now has their new universe, their absolute universe. So it's just the whole Image, you know, leaving the big two and then going back to the big two, but still having Image. And then now you see there's just a whole lot of crossover, because Eric Larson covers for Marvel still, and you know, so I like that these guys, you know, didn't remain locked in to Image, and I like that DC and Marvel recognize the talent and the business initiative of these guys to still have them do work for them. I think
it's interesting because you can look back in retrospect and see, you know, how far they've come. And I think it was really wise of them, because when it initially launched, look at your titles. You have Youngblood, you have Wildcats, you have Cyberforce, you have Savage Dragon, you have Spawn, Shadowhawk. These are all superhero characters. It was literally, they were doing what they wanted to do, but they were superheroes. This was the superhero genre. There wasn't any of like the slice of life, horror, the multiple genres, sci-fi, all that stuff that you have now in Image. And I think, you know, Robert Kirkman coming in and doing what he did with Walking Dead kind of just, I mean, they were doing stuff before then as well. Not zombie stuff, but they were doing multiple genre stuff. But it wasn't until he got in that it really took hold. And I think it was really smart of Image to kind of like not just stay in that one genre of superheroes and kind of break out from that. Because I think if they were the third superhero company, they probably wouldn't be around now.
Right.
Because Marvel and DC had what, 40 plus, 50 plus years
at that point
already. They had a head start. Like there was no tomorrow. There was no catching up. We've seen some really cool stuff with like those tropes, and we see some cool things that have come in, but I don't think that anything that was going to be sustainable like you already had in that respects. So you have your individual characters, you have your team characters that already people knew, that have been around for so long. And I think, you know, as cool as those initial books were from Image, they just wouldn't have had the longevity, I think, that you know, the big two already had. And honestly, back then, I mean, if you ask me who wrote what book, I'd be like, I have no fucking idea. Because literally, like in the 90s, you were following artists primarily.
It's the age of the artist, You had those, you had a couple, at least 3 of them. You had Todd, Eric, and Jim Valentino were writing and doing the art on their threes. Yep.
Yes.
And
I believe Liefeld too. I don't think he's done a lot of dialogue, he's done his plots and scripts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but not dialogue stuff.
And the other thing that Image kind of had against them, which they really tried to do pretty quickly out of the gate was, again, the big two had the public awareness because of cartoons and movies and television shows and licensing and toys and merchandise. And so, one of the first things that Image did out the gate was getting Rob Liefeld on the Tonight Show to promote the launch of Youngblood #1. Todd McFarlane, who loves toys, 3 years into Image, creates his own toy company, Todd Toys, which again becomes McFarlane Toys, and that's a juggernaut in and of itself now. So all those licensing opportunities that they really tried to do out the gate, I think really helped them along. And you mentioned, the slice of life stuff, which did come later, but I think like within the first 3 years, Jim Valentino, I think, might have done Image's first slice of life book, A Touch of Silver, which was all about him growing up and his love for Silver Age comics. So that was also there early on. And it just, again, the way Image just has exploded over their existence is just remarkable. It really is.
Yeah. And listen, as much as I was like following Todd and Rob and stuff like that, because I read X-Force #1, that was broken off of from New Mutants, and that was his baby over at Marvel. And,
New Mutants was the title he took over, and then X-Force was created for him. I said it so convincingly, I thought that I was right, but I was wrong. Yeah.
No, but it's fine. But the thing is like, my introduction later on, to Dale Keown, Will Spatarcio, Jim Valentino, Eric Larson, I didn't know those guys before Image.
Right.
And I was really introduced to them. And they had a whole body of work before Image and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, Wetworks to me forever. And I know I told you this story before, but it's fucking crazy that I go to a convention and Wills is there. He's just signing books. Yeah. And everybody in their fucking hands has X-Men whatever on it, because I think Bishop, I think he was part of creating Bishop, was he not?
I think he might have been, yeah.
Yes. If I'm not mistaken. So they have whatever first appearance of Bishop in their hand, blah. And I get up to him and he's like, oh, he's really soft-spoken, really nice guy. And I put down my copy of Wetworks. And he goes, whoa, why do you want me to sign this? I'm like, dude, this is a great book. Yeah. I wish he'd bring it back and stuff like that. And he just started laughing.
I always loved Whilce. It's funny because I knew Whilce and Jim Lee before their X-Men work, and I was a big X-Men reader, but had fallen off by the time they got onto those titles. But for me, Jim Lee came under my radar because of Punisher War Journal. And Will Spartasio came under my radar because of the regular Punisher series that, and their art blew me away. And I always thought Wetworks was really cool because I loved his style. Yeah. And then, of course, when, Jim Lee took over Iron Man, Whilce was the artist on that and designed probably one of my favorite, though slightly over-designed, Iron Man armors. I like that Heroes Reborn Iron Man armor for some reason. I just love his design style.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I mean, even Dale Keown's Pit and stuff like that, it was just really solid stuff. So it just introduced me to a lot of artists who had previous bodies of work that I never even heard of and stuff like that. So,
like Sam Keith. Sam Keith is another one.
Yeah, the Max.
Because of the Max, but that guy, had been doing a lot of stuff before that. But yeah, so Image also did put a lot of people under, on the radar for casual comic fans, to discover and find their stuff. So it's great.
Yeah, it was cool. Great. So we're going to be talking about Image a little bit more later on when we get into the reviews. But yeah, that I mean, your introduction was to comics a lot earlier than mine. Even though I was introduced, it was just in sprinkles, and then dude, I used to have every single issue of every week that came out of Image. I used to put up on my wall, so they would be in their Mylars, and then I would just tape it to the wall, and my entire wall was just covered with Image comics and stuff like that, which was fantastic. Cool. All right, so before we get into the reviews, just really quickly, Project Shadowbreed, our Kickstarter, dude, we're at 76%. I think we're just like $200 away from goal, which is absolutely fantastic. So if you've not gone over yet, go over to projectshadowbreed.com. And just read on there what we've got going on. We're really excited about getting the story out. Justin and I have been working diligently to, get this whole first story arc pretty much done. I think we're just at the end of getting issue 3 completed, and then there's one more issue after that for the first art. So really, really cool stuff. I'm going to leave the QR code up there for the entire podcast. So if you want to scan it, you can. It takes you right to the site. Think about sending it on to some friends, and we're looking at hit and go. I think we have about 28 days left, which is a lot. It's about a month, and we're almost at goal right now. So we're really, really excited about that. So yeah, think about going over there and supporting us on that. I woke up this morning and I was like, holy shit, that's pretty cool.
That's great.
Because we're getting them in. Yeah, and it's crazy because Kickstarter is its own animal, and I've been on there pretty much almost every single day looking at other people's work as well. There's some really cool stuff out there. Actually, you know what? Before we get into reviews, remember what? Not Wildcats. It was SWAT Cats, the cartoon.
Yeah.
So like back in I think it was late 80s, probably early 90s. Yeah. Dude, great freaking cartoon. Love that cartoon. So the guy that voiced one of the characters actually is involved somehow with a launch of SWAT Cats, the comic that was on Kickstarter. Dude, it looks fantastic. There was no way in hell I could not support it because I was such a huge fan of that cartoon. I know the cartoon's probably not going to come back, but to get it in some form or another, yeah, it's cool. I think they have like maybe a week or so, maybe just a little bit over that for their campaign. I mean, they're well, I think they're like at 1,000% over in their funding, which is it's an IP that was super popular. So if you're looking at nostalgia, yeah, anybody who's like watching cartoons in the 90s knows SWAT Cats for sure. And I think it's funny because I'm reverse. I watched a ton of cartoons when I was younger, but I started to watch even more like in my high school and teen years because that's when I really got into art. So animation and anything animated was like in my wheelhouse, which was fantastic. So yeah, definitely been checking out a bunch, and we're going to talk about one today for sure, which would be cool. All right, so that's going to bring us into reviews, ladies and gentlemen. So John and I just, we comb the shelves and we look for stuff that's coming out each week that is either part of small press or creator owned or part of the independent comic world, and we take it off and we read it and we give our 2 cents on it. So this week is no different. We have a couple of books for you. John, I think I'm going to have you start first on your book.
All right. So mine is from Dark Horse Comics. It is called American Caper. And Ooh. American Caper is a lot of people working on this. So it is created and written by Dan Houser, produced and additional writing by Laszlo. Talk about names, just one name, Laszlo. Story layouts and pencils by David Lapham, colored by Lee Loffridge, finishes by Chris Anderson, lettered by Nate Picos, and main covers by Tyler Boss. Again, the publisher for Dark Horse is Mike Richardson. Editors are Sally Bond and Daniel Chabin. Assisting editor is Chuck Howitt-Leese. Assistant editor is Jesse Cortez. Digital art technician is Conley Pressler, and pre-press Jake Johnson. And so American Caper is also not an imprint, but there is an ad for Absurd Ventures. There is a website, absurdventures.com. Back cover, it says Absurd Ventures, Storytelling, Philanthropy, Ultraviolence. So I like that. Storytelling, philanthropy, and ultraviolence. And kind of falls in line with the sensibility of this book. I do want to note out, I did note that I did get the B cover, which is by Simon Bisley, one of my favorite artists. And this is really good. This actually, it's like a little bit of a collage-y mashup of several scenes or moments in this first issue, focusing on one of your two main characters. So I thought it really reflected the book very well. And, a lot of covers will give you scenes that aren't in the comic. This is just scenes that are in the comic. So I think that's really cool. And this chapter 1 is titled Land Deals and Leisure Wear. And this takes place in a town called Verona, Wyoming. And what's really neat is playing on the name of Verona. They begin with a quote from Romeo and Juliet: two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. And you basically have two guys who live right next door to each other. And you can see one guy's got a really nice house, nice car, very big, very confident. And then you see this other guy, less of a nicer house, and he's not too happy. And you start following this guy, right? So he is your narrator for the first chunk of the story. And he basically talks about how his life is so bad. He thought he was going to become a lawyer. He was going to save the world one case at a time. And then he had developed a gambling addiction and lost almost everything. And it's really funny. The way that the narration plays out in here is that he's basically like, it wasn't a big deal. I would just bet on this one thing. But then it's comma after comma after comma of a laundry list of all the things that he was betting on, including elections and, all this stuff. So at every time this one character has a complaint about something, or is saying, my wife used to be great and now she found the internet and now she's all against comma after comma after comma of all the crazy, insane conspiracy stuff that people fall into on the internet. And the daughter is the opposite. The daughter is rebellion. So she's rebelling against comma after comma after comma after comma of all of these things that young kids want to protest against. So it's really funny that it's like, the guy's like, sort of like, yeah, things are bad, but they're not that bad. And then it's like, no, they're really bad for this guy. He is miserable. His son is distant. His daughter is distant. His wife is distant. He is envious of his next door neighbor, thinks that guy's got everything perfect and going for him. And the inciting incident is a van crashes in between their two houses, smashing their shared fence. And out comes a whole bunch of basically people pouring out of this van. And the van was clearly a human trafficking operation. With all these people running loose. And this is one funny thing about the book, is that it gives you some threads, but then kind of leaves them dangling. So we don't really know at this point what that was about. What we know what it looks like, but all these people run scattering, but we don't really see the aftermath of that, because the lawyer has to go to work, but he tells the neighbor, look, I'll call the insurance company and file the claim for our fence, and we'll figure this out later. And his neighbor, again, the perfect neighbor with the perfect wife and the perfect Mormon family, is like, great, because I have something I have to do. And then a really neat technique is your first person narrative shifts from the one guy you've been following. So now we're seeing the story from the point of view of his perfect neighbor, who apparently made some big mistake, which was not revealed, but now he is beholden to his boss, and he is in real estate, and basically he is now a hitman for his land developer boss.
Oh my gosh.
Because the boss is covering for him for this big mistake that he made. And it's all wrapped up into the Mormon sensibility and the religiousness of that. So, you have this guy who basically, the one guy thinks he lives a perfect life, but this guy's got some real serious demons that make the first guy's gambling addiction and distancing from his family pale in comparison. So I love that all these concepts were introduced. I love the sense of humor that is wrapped up in this. And I love that, threads are there to be picked up on later or not, who knows? Right. But I love the shifting focus between these two guys and the shifting narrative. David Lapham.
So there's going to have to be some crossover between these two guys.
Oh, again, they're neighbors, and there's going to have to be something, whether they're going to wind up having to work together,
right,
or if they're going to be at the opposite end of whatever this is building towards.
So who would you say is the antagonist, or what is the antagonist?
So it's interesting because according to the first guy, who's the lawyer with the gambling problem, everybody else around him is the problem, right?
Mm.
Even though he's got this really bad gambling addiction and he's hiding from his family how bad it has gotten. In his mind, everybody's got the problem. The other guy who, on the surface, everything appears perfect. He's kind of like, I got myself into this mess, and now this is the price that I have to pay. This is what I have to do. So it's almost like each of these guys in their own story are both their own antagonist and protagonist. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it develops. David Lapham, who has been around forever. Stray Bullets is like his big crime noir series, long running. He's done a lot of stuff for the big two as well. So in this, he just handles the art duties as opposed to the writing, but he is just fantastic as always. Just some really neat, just his panel layouts are great. This is the van crashing and all the people going scattering, and the two guys talking about like, whoa, what just happened and how are we going to deal with this? This is a really neat, where he's describing his daughter and how his daughter is, against everything the mother has, so like, it's just really, the mother has going on. So it's just really, really neat stuff. This is the wife being obsessed over her internet stuff with her diet All-American Cola and just all this, just great.
Now, this is not how they are. This is how he sees them.
And that's a really good question because we don't really see his family in the context of anything else. So very much how he sees them. But I think there's, it's just this guy's being very honest about his own faults and his own foibles. I feel like, that, and it is sort of universal. This does, I think, happen now in this internet age, even the son being very distant and just fantasizing about, being a video game hero and things like that. Are just, I feel that there is a sense of truth to what is going on around this guy. But you're right there, since this does play on perception. I think that there's going to be more told. I think there's going to be more levels and nuances. It'd be really interesting to see if the narration shifts, not just from these two guys, but also like their wives and their kids and what's going on from their points of view. So I don't know how long this is planning to run, but it is a great first issue full of just really relatable twists and turns in a lot of respects, maybe except for the van crashing and whole bunch of human trafficking victims running amok. But as far as the struggles that, what we deal with as we get older with what we want to be and then what we become, I feel is very universal. And again, played for laughs, which is great. And again, David Lapham's art is great because he can do both serious, crime noir, gritty stuff, but also things that very much feel like a satire, like a Mad Magazine type. So it's a great blend of just some very serious and again, violent stuff that happens towards the end of this first issue, which is just the beginning, as well as just, absurd characters and situations.
See it. All right.
So American Caper.
From Dark Horse Comics. Definitely check it out. Wonderful. All right, if you're just joining us, we're into our reviews. First one was just an American Caper. I've got the next two. So I'm going to start with this one. I promise we're not going to go way overboard with this one because we talked so much about it already. But yeah, it's finally back. After I don't know how many years, we finally get the Youngblood team back.
Back under Rob's hands.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes. I mean, we've talked about it in somewhat depth in regards to kind of what happened. I mean, I don't know the story, the true story of him selling off the characters at one point to either a publisher or something, just knowing that he lost the rights for a while. And I just remember it's got to be like at least 5 years or something where some guy had the rights and was promising to do a new launch of this Youngblood. And it was a big Twitter thing when Twitter was Twitter and not X. And recruiting artists to do sample pages, got the sample pages in, then had them start to work on issue number 1 and never paying the artists. So we never got it. And I don't know what happened, but Rob, for some way, was able to get his characters back and to be able to do another version of, or not another version, but the original version, and continuing from that, 90s series that we got, which is pretty cool. And we've had a bunch of iterations of Youngblood in between. So I know there was up to, I think, volume 3 in Youngblood that wasn't done by Rob, done by other people's. And we had one I want to say a couple years ago with Chad Bowers and Liefeld doing covers. But I think Chad Bowers was doing the story and the art at that particular time. And it was published through Image. So there was something going on there in that respects. But who cares? We got the man back. So let's just go over. All right. Who did the story? Who did the pencils? Who did the inks? Obviously, Rob Liefeld, who's the one-man show. Art, the colors done by Juan Manuel Rodriguez. Additional inks by Chance Wolf, and then lettering and design by Russ Wooten. This is, he's been doing it for a while. This was done sort of. It's funny because I do listen to his podcast, and this actual Youngblood has been out for a while already because he's doing sort of like his own thing where he's doing direct to market, which means he's doing his own thing through the Whatnot app and actually selling the comics and selling his stories and selling additional prints through Whatnot. And that was done a while ago. And then now releasing through Image Comics, where he was an original founder. So it just kind of makes sense for this to kind of come back home. And this was the flagship book of Image Comics in that 92 era, which is fantastic. So if you were around and you got your copy of Youngblood, and then you got this copy, and you open it, holy crap, you just take it back to the fucking 90s. It's just crazy how this is just like frozen in time and just didn't skip a beat. Just as large splash pages, and I mean his style. So like I say this all the time, and I tell you all the time, there's no middle ground. You either love Rob Liefeld or you don't. It's just as simple as that. There's no like, no. You either like it all or you don't. And it's cool. So you've got the original team back. What was really cool, and I did not notice this until I actually looked at it over and over and over. Do you know what this is?
So
well, obviously you see a silhouette of Spawn, Shadowhawk, Savage Dragon, Ripclaw. But look at the layout.
It's the Image logo. That's very neat.
It's the Image freaking logo, which is pretty freaking cool. So there's just like these little things of Easter eggs that he kind of throws in there as well. So, but you have the original team back. You got Chapel, Vogue, Shaft is the leader, Die Hard, and Bad Rock. And basically you're getting a Youngblood story of the superhero team that's working with the government or working for the government, and then issued out for whatever crises that they have. And the new bad guy that they have here is called Xerxes. So you get to see him at the very end. And then you get introduced to a couple of new bad guys. There's one guy called Vandal who ends up fighting with Shaft for a little bit. And then I think we get one other dude that comes in and interrupts their fight. The big fight scene is with Bad Rock and Xerxes himself, which goes on for a while. And you just see panels of them just punching each other in the face, which is absolutely hilarious. And then obviously Xerxes prevailing at the end. And then you get sort of like this, like he's just throwing everything in there, which I absolutely freaking love. So then at the very end, I don't care, I'm going to spoil it because even if you read it, you're going to be like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Yes, you get the Supreme family coming in at the very end. So he's just going for it. If you're a fan of the 90s, if you were there when this originally launched, this is just going to throw you right back in there. The thing about this particular launch, because I think the original one only had the one cover that I can remember, but it was a flip cover because it was two teams. You had Team A, Team B, and you had Sentinel on one side with his team, and then you had Shaft, which is the main cover that everybody sees. And it's a flip book because it's telling the story of both teams, and then they kind of meet in the middle there. This one doesn't. It just has his team there, but a ton of covers. So you got this is the foil cover of Liefeld. You got the main one, which wasn't a blind bag, but it was a sealed bag because it had a card in it And actually, if you shake it around, you could actually see what card is in it. So that if you wanted to collect all the cards, you could actually pick up each one of them, just shake them, and then collect the cards. You had
just like X-Force 1.
No, but I don't think you could see it because
but it came polybagged with a trading card.
It came polybagged, but the card was inside.
In the book, yeah,
in the book, and you had to tear it out.
Yeah.
But this one is actually loose in the polybag. Yeah, so you can actually see what you want to get. But ton of covers. You got Scotty Young, Ryan Stegman. You got dude, that Daniel Warren Johnson cover.
Oh, so good.
That's so good. And I'm just like, I can't collect another artist, even though I want to pick it up so badly. I just said I can't. You got Ryan Stegman in there as well. And then you got a couple of incentive covers. One from EM. Is it Gist or Geist?
I think it's Gist, but I think it's never heard anyone else pronounce it outside of a comic shop. So
all right, so yes, Mark Spears and Cale New and stuff like that. So a ton of covers, and then you had retail specific covers, guys that bought their own covers and stuff like that, particularly for their retail store. So I think all in all, I think there was about 27-ish covers for this particular book. And from what I understand, it did sell out, and the second prints are going into print. And there's a really cool homage to, what is it, New Mutants 98, right? With him, with Deadpool on it. That he did with all the new characters that he has on there, and then the Youngblood team behind. So, like a fool, I had to get it because it looks damn good cool. So like I said, really cool stuff. He's writing it, so if you're expecting anything, and it's weird, right? Because we're in this day and age where writers are really celebrated for the content that they bring out. If you look at James Tynion with what is it, Nice House by the Lake, and now House by the Sea, he's not drawing; he's just writing it.
He's just writing,
yeah. So you've got these really great stories that are out there, and great storytellers, and I think writers now are being celebrated much more so than they were in the 90s. Not to say that they weren't really good writers, but like we said before, I think that was the artist era. And whenever you went to cons or whenever you picked up a book, you're mostly flipping through for the art. If you read it, you read it, but oftentimes it was mostly for the art, and we were going through this extreme era. And this sort of like brings you back to that era. So if you're looking for something that is a writer's book, this is not it. This is the A-Team. This is all Ashley Pack. This is 80s Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff like that, which has its place. To me, comics need to be fun. We've read a ton of books where we've been challenged intellectually, or we've been challenged to think about the story and what's being there. So if we take American Capers or that you just finished reviewing, that's more of a thought process book than a whole shit. Oh my God, this guy just threw this guy through the roof kind of thing. So
though those moments are there as well. And there is a sense of humor as well. And so yeah, it is serious, but it is also fun. But I know exactly what you're saying, because last week, Crownsville, right? Deadly serious historical backdrop for a fictional story, so yeah, so it's great.
But in that essence, when I ask you who's the protagonist, it's not quite clear.
It's not quite clear.
It can be themselves. It can be something that's sort of like ominous that hasn't shown up yet. When you pick this up and you read it, you know who the bad guys are.
It's good brain candy.
Yeah. Sometimes, like even when we go to the movies, sometimes you just want to go to the movies and just see people just get shot up and then just leave. Yeah. Not worrying about what the existential crisis is, how it's gonna affect the world, or how it's gonna affect the media of the movies. This is that. This is just pure fun, and I love that. He stays true to his roots, and yeah, you get exactly what you get when you pick up a Rob Liefeld book. So if you know Rob Liefeld work, you're gonna get it. If you don't, I implore you, get it, because you will not be disappointed. You may be like, holy shit, this was like nothing to think about, but it's
and it looks nice.
Yeah. Yes, it's beautiful. He hasn't skipped the beat, which is great.
Yeah. Now, a couple questions. Does this acknowledge any of the Youngblood stuff that was put out by Image after Rob left, or is this doing like a Halloween 2018 and just picking up after his final issue of original flavor Youngblood?
So because it's the first issue, I'm going to say no. There isn't any content regarding those other volumes after him. Whether he mentions, because I know there was that one, I never read it, and I need to get my hands on it. But it was Neil Gaiman had done a short, and it wasn't. That was probably one of the first ones that wasn't really superhero-ish. It was one of the I think I forgot who was on trial, but it was a trial series. So basically, you have one of the characters, Riptide, get murdered, and one of the Youngbloods was being put on trial for the murder. And so I think it was a 4-issue mini, if I'm not mistaken. I'll get it for next week, but it was definitely titled something, and that was one of the books that I don't think it's considered a volume. I think it's considered sort of like its own thing,
right,
in that respects. But yeah, there was a bunch out there. So no, yeah, the short answer is no. There isn't any acknowledgement towards that. This is sort of like taking off of where he left off in his series, and you're going after a particular bad guy in this particular one. So as it evolves and as he brings more characters in, I guess we'll see where it goes.
Now, that being said, if you had not read the original Youngblood series, and this is your first Youngblood comic, good entry point, gives you everything you need to know, tells you who the characters are.
Okay, so I'm going to put this up there really, really close. You can tell me right at the top, what does it say? What does it say up there?
I can't read it.
Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. Because if you're asking me that, I'll do that. And then I'm going to put it right there in the yellow box. What's his name?
Chapel.
Yes. Yes. So yes, it is absolutely a good entry point because it has all the hallmarks of what they used to do.
Yeah. It gives you the name with the logo and the description of who they are, and
yeah, sort of like their characteristic of who they are in the team and stuff like that. So yes, it's a good entry point. There's even a little like the way that Shaz speaks about the team in regards to what they do and stuff like that. So absolutely.
Now, the other thing I find interesting is not too long ago, Image came out with the book Blood Squad 7. Which we did review. We talked about a little bit because that was really interesting because when Image started, all these books were in the same world and there was a pretty tight continuity for a time until the books started to go off and do their own thing. And because of the rights issue with Youngblood, Youngblood was sort of pulled out of that continuity, and Blood Squad 7 was designed to fill that gap. Right? So that this was what Youngblood was in the Image continuity. It's really interesting because the writer of the book in that text piece of the back says, I really hope Rob gets the rights back and I hope Youngblood comes back. I guess at that point it was probably in the works and
right.
So I find it interesting because Blood Squad 7 is still rolling.
Yeah.
And coincidentally enough, the same day that Youngblood #1 comes out is the most recent issue of Blood Squad 7.
Issue number 11,
yeah. So I'm kind of interested in how if they're just going to kind of like, this is just the Liefeld Pocket universe.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be brought in, and there's room for everything. I think if there's a little crossover between them two, that would be awesome. But who knows what he's doing and what he's thinking? All I know is he's working the legacy number. So he's working up to legacy, which is going to be 100. So whatever issue that is, it should be relatively soon. Then it's going to be issue 100. And so that means that whatever volumes came out are going to be part of canon because he didn't do 100 issues in that first volume. I don't even think it made it to 50 if I'm not mistaken. So so it's taking everything that's a culmination of everything that's been up to now, and it's going to make that legacy 100.
It would be great. It would be great if it got meta and you have Youngblood facing off against Blood Squad 7 for the right to be the premier Image covert ops team,
Yes. And I think that's what we need, right? We don't really have a team book in Image, a superhero team book, other than Blood Squad 7 that we've been talking about right now. So listen, if we get some of these 90s characteristics back, I think that'd be cool for a little while. I think there's, like you said, it's circular, it's circular, that where it's just coming back, and every now and then we can get, if we can squeeze out 5 more years of 90s style stories and art and stuff like that, that'd be great, alongside the content that they're already putting out right now. So they'll just go back into it, because I think
I love that Supreme shows up at the end. Some of the best Silver Age Superman comics were written by Alan Moore in the Supreme book.
Yes. So that would be great. But even if we can get a resurgence, I mean, listen, Dale Keown, just come out for a little bit, give us, a mini of the Pit. That'd be great. Will's come and give us a mini of Wetworks. I'll take some of that, which would be fantastic. And then all these other ones that were out there for such a long time. It'd be great to just get, a couple. If we can get freaking Jim Valentino, even if he's not going to draw it, if you can just get us, 5 issues of Shadowhawk, another 5 issues of Cyberforce from Mark Silvestri, we're good. That'll suffice us for another 30 years. By then, I'll be long gone. So I'm reaching out to you guys right now. I'm pleading. Yeah, cool. So for now, get your hands on Youngblood #1 from Image Comics. Look out for more.
Rob, if you're watching, make Angel's Year and come on the show.
Yeah,
and bring that original pair of 501 jeans.
Oh man, that'd be awesome. Yeah, some Levi's. But here's the deal. So with the second print, what I'm really looking forward to, because there's been Treasury editions that DC's been releasing. So I got like the issue #1 of, what was it? The Superman. What was it called? I'm not going to remember, but I got that one. There will be a Treasury edition of Youngblood #1.
Oh, cool.
Guess who's getting that one? If it's black and white, it's cool. If it's color, it's cool.
It's like a work in progress. That you're talking about the All-Star Superman.
The All-Star Superman one.
So you're going to get just Rob's raw pencils.
I don't know if it's a Treasury edition. I think it might be similar to like the Batman Hush stuff. Treasury editions that they've been doing. Yeah. So we'll see. It wasn't really descriptive on that, but yeah, either way, I'll take an 11x17 of that, which would be freaking cool. So yeah, all right, enough, Rob, you're done. All right, last one. Okay, so I told you guys I've been on my Kickstarter kick, supporting a bunch of Kickstarters, and now they're starting to trickle in. So I got one of my first ones called Immortal Coil. Now, if you had to guess, John, what this book was about, just by the name and just by the picture, could you?
I would say there's probably some witchcraft and some deals with some sort of demons to live forever, and yet you're trapped in some sort of cyclical living hell.
Fantastic. All right,
with like a Vampirella type.
You could not be further from what this book is about. All right, nice. So let me start off by saying I absolutely enjoyed reading this. It was frustrating and enjoyable at the same time, only because it was Sandman-esque.
Okay,
if you get my drift. So there's some prose in there and stuff like that, and it really reminded me of reading freaking that one trade of Sandman. It took me like, I think, 6 months to read. So let me just get the creatives out of the way. So this one's called Immortal Coil, Volume 1, The End of All Things, assuming there's going to be other volumes because the story wasn't finished. Story and art by Gerald von Stoddard, written by Frank Martin, colors by, I'm going to butcher this name, Guilherme Lindenberg, and inks by John Martin, and letters by Rob Jones and Jerome Gagnon. So in short, this is Norse mythology for Odin's son Loki story.
Okay.
Pretty cool. So basically, in short, from what I got from this particular book, the way that it was written is it throws you right into spoilers, Loki literally killing Odin. But they're in the mortal realm. And so by doing that, Hel, who's Loki's daughter, is released from her prison. And so what Loki's trying to do is release this particular god so that he can take over the mortal realm, because Ragnarok has already happened. And so because of that, he needs to go ahead and kill anybody who's going to be able to stand in his way. And what we're looking at is Thor's kids. But they don't know that they are Thor's kids, because in this realm, the spell, and for some reason they call her, instead of Frigga, it's Frigga, Frigga,
Yep.
which is Odin's wife, casts a spell to bring everybody to the mortal realm before Ragnarok happens, but they've lost all their memories that they're Asgardian, kind of thing. So it's really the art's great, first of all. The writing, superb, and the fact that you mix these prose and the dialogue of each one of the characters has a distinct voice, which I liked. Let me go into a full screen so you can see some of this stuff, because it's actually really, really cool. And so the designs are pretty awesome. So if we look at this particular one right here, you can see Loki's actually wearing a mask because his real face is disfigured. You can see it over there at the bottom. Spoilers. And the woman on the cover is actually his daughter. And their relationship is really one of distrust, which is what the lore is really about. She does not trust him at all because he's the god of trickery and lies and all this stuff. But he wants to destroy not just Odin, but his whole entire legacy and stuff like that. So there's intricacies in there that, you have all these ancillary characters that stories are being told around them to tie into the main story that's going on. Which is pretty cool. It took me a while to read it, because whenever you're reading something that's new, and I know Thor from Marvel, but not the actual Norse mythology Thor, and there's different takes on it. So when you're reading something that's brand new, if you don't know who the characters are in their essence or how they're trying to be portrayed, then it makes it difficult for a lot of the information to sink in, for me at least. So getting used to these new characters, getting used to sort of like the take of who they see Thor, because Thor's not even in the book. I don't know if he's dead, but his kids, his two sons and daughter, are in the book along with Odin and his wife and stuff like that. And then obviously Loki and his daughter. And then this demon, whatever, that he's trying to release. Just the pace in it, great. It's one of these things where it's issues that were combined together to make volume 1. So here's the thing for me. It's told from sort of like the present-ish, and then you get into the next issue, which ends you off. I think this is issue 1 and 2, and then they're like 40 pages each, which is a good size chunk. So this is about 80 pages in here, storytelling. And then the second part is actually going back and looking at Asgard and what happens there to get them to the present. So you're going from the present, and then issue 2 taking you back to get you back to the present. And when I finally read the whole thing, everything made sense to me. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a little bit frustrated reading, because I didn't know some of the context. And I think what was missing for me in the storytelling is, I think the only thing that was missing from this is at the very end, you have sort of like these pencils and inks and stuff like that are being brought in there, which are beautiful, because I love the art in this book. But I think if you would have had sort of like a character breakdown of even if it's not like a short bio on who these characters were, then it would probably make more of what was going on in the story land a little bit more in regards to the characters, because sometimes the characters' names aren't even mentioned. So I don't know who they are until much later on. So I think maybe even bringing that in a little bit sooner, or just having those short bios in the back to give a little bit more context to who these characters or maybe their motives and stuff like that. Because if you don't know the lore at all, then who's Hel? Who's Loki? Right. Well, I'm not going to say who's Loki, who's Thor. Your instinct is going to be going off of probably what you're seeing in the Marvel universe. and
but
that's not
even
necessarily
exactly, because even the original Norse mythologies, are very different from what we all know from Marvel.
correct.
So I could see how that, because you have that association with who Loki is and who Thor is, and then if you're reading something that is pulling from the original myths, and these characters are a little off model in your brain.
Yes, even the names are off a little bit too.
Yeah,
That they use. So, but they're those characters. But all in all, like I said, this was a really good read. I don't know if they have. I know that it's already ended because I have my copy. But it might be worth searching on Kickstarter. Immortal Coil. Search for it and see if they have copies that that they sell outside of Kickstarter. Really, really cool. This is one of the things that I love. That why we have Kickstarter, because I don't know if this would have ended up on a shelf in our store, or if it's going to be part of that market. But the fact that they were able to get it out there, and I think they're from, if I'm not mistaken, he's from the UK. I could be off a little bit, but yeah, just the fact that I got it and I read it in one sitting. I was at work and I had a little bit of time and I was like, oh, dude, I want to read this. But yeah, really, really cool stuff. So yeah, if you like Norse mythology and you want a different take on Ragnarok and Thor, Odin's son and all that, Immortal Coil, check it out. Just look it up on Kickstarter.
Cool. I just want to
really cool stuff.
I want to let Angel's boss know that he's a fast reader. So reading an 80-page comic on some downtime at work did not take him away from work.
Well, you know what? Credit to that creativity, because for me, I like to look at art a little bit, especially if it's stuff that I think it's really cool. So even staying there for a couple of minutes, looking and admiring the art, saying that it was Sandman-esque, because anything that's written by like Alan Moore or Neil Gaiman, it's going to take me months to read it, because oftentimes the prose, it's almost like you're talking to somebody that loves to hear the sound of their voice, so they'll just talk the talk.
You should read,
even though they're saying beautiful things.
Yeah, you should read an Alan Moore script, because those are so much more dense than the actual comics that come out.
Yeah, so I could imagine as an artist, you're just like, whoa, you come out of there. But yeah, listen, pleasantly surprised. There's a ton of stuff on Kickstarter, and trust me, I've gotten stuff on Kickstarter that was just like, oh my God, why did I waste my money on this kind of thing? But this was not a disappointment. Really cool stuff. I know there should be a continuation of the story. For me, I think individual issues will probably be less digestible than the chunks that they gave here, which were the first two issues, because it kind of finished that story arc, which is fantastic. Left it on a really great cliffhanger. But to me, because the only downside for Kickstarter is that it's sort of like Netflix. If you finish season 1 and they renew it, then you don't get season 2 for like another 2 years. And by then you've already forgotten what season 1 was all about. So I hope it doesn't take that long. I hope this is something that they've already got sort of in the bag, and they're going to bring the next iteration in, because I really enjoyed it. It was really cool. I think it's right up your alley. You know what? Actually, I'm going to leave this for you probably on Wednesday.
Oh, cool!
I think you'd really enjoy this.
I love.
This is right up your alley. Yeah.
I love original Norse mythology. I do love the Kirby Thor mythology, but I'm a sucker for original Norse mythology because it's so weird and strange. This really. This is intriguing me. So thank you.
Yeah, it's cool. I think you like it. Yeah, and then I'd like to get your point of view on it and stuff like that. So, that'd be cool. All right. Well, there you have it. So you got 3 this week. You got American Cape by Dark Horse. You've got Young Blood by Image Comics, and then Immortal Coil on Kickstarter, so you can search for them. Like I said, if you're really into Norse mythology or just want a different iteration on that whole thing, definitely check them out, which would be really, 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 really cool. As I mentioned before, just really quickly again, we're almost at goal, so I'm really excited. We've got about 28 days left, and we're at like almost 80% of our goal. I think we're just like $200 shy, which is pretty awesome. So I want to thank everybody who's actually supported so far. Thank you guys for your support, because without you, we wouldn't be able to make things happen. If you've not gone over to Kickstarter, go over to projectshadowbreed.com. It'll take you right to the page. You'll be able to read everything, see some wonderful work from Alex Moser, who's the artist, see the different options that you have for covers and what we have for incentives as well. You've got the QR code on the screen as well. If you want to just take a picture of that, it will take you there as well.
I heard I heard one of the secret incentives is the actual serum that they use to turn Merrick into a werewolf.
Dude, if we could do it, that would be freaking awesome. I'm just gonna mail a vial of some green stuff that could pass for it, which would be awesome. All right, cool, gang. So listen, thank you guys for joining us this week. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast. Better yet, tell some friends. Have them come along every Monday, as John and I love to discuss our favorite medium, which is comics. If you're a creator and want to be on the podcast, I will give you warning. We're probably going to hold off until the new year. You've got a really busy schedule for the next couple of months with the holidays coming up and stuff like that. But if you want to get yourself on for the beginning of the year, go over to indiecreatorcomics.com. There's a link up on top that says podcast form. Fill it out. John and I would love to have you on, talk about you and or a project that you have going on. Last but not least, support your local comic shop, because without them, we would not be able to do what we love to do every single week, which is read comics, talk comics. John, where do you get your comics from?
Well, I get my comics at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And if you come into The Joker's Child and you see me, say hi to Phil, because that's who I am at The Joker's Comic. So to kind of bring us back to that name confusion that we talked about earlier. But otherwise, at The Joker's Comic, besides a guy named John who they call Phil, you got all these great comics, a couple of the ones that we talked about today, as well as a ton of others. And boy, this week coming up is going to be huge. I don't even want to tell you some of the big names of the books that are coming out, but they're going to be big, and you're going to want to get your hands on those awesome comics. You're also going to want to get your holiday shopping done early, which you can certainly do at The Joker's Child or your local comic shop. If you can't find your local comic shop, use your Google machine, your comic shop locator. Get yourself to your local comic shop, get your holiday shopping done, get a little something for yourself while you're getting stuff for other people, and get it all taken care of. And that way you can just relax, sit back, and read comics before the holidays or Ragnarok, whichever happens first.
Oh, yeah, Ragnarok. All right, gang, listen, until next time, we want to thank you for joining us on the Indie Creator Comics Podcast, where we are all about independent comics.